I'm sitting down to a delicious vegan meal. Could be made vegetarian. Here we have rice with veggies. The veggies are broccoli and carrots, beet leaves, lightly steamed, a dal which is made from split peas. It's like a creamy split pea soup, but a little bit thicker, with cracked walnuts on top, flax chips, all natural, and a vegan mayonnaise made of potatoes and carrots. So before we begin our cooking class, I just want to have a little note about energetic cleanliness. In Reiki and other spiritual traditions like yoga and the Vedas, they recommend washing your hands, of course, which is common sense, but also washing your mouth, because there's a lot of energy that goes into our mouth from the way we speak or the things that we put into our mouth from eating. So we want to also clean the energy from our mouth before we start cooking in the kitchen, so that we can give the food also better energy, especially thinking about the people that we're going to serve. So what I'm going to do is rinse my hands here. And also to wash my mouth, I can just rinse my mouth and spit it out. So the first step for cooking our dal is that we're going to soak the split peas. If you don't have split peas, you can always use lentils, but the split peas end up disintegrating a little bit and makes it for kind of a soupier type of smoother dal. It's not absolutely necessary to soak the split peas, but it makes it a little bit easier for them to boil and then to disintegrate into a dal. So this is a half a kilo since we're in Chile, and this is about a pound, and this will serve for about 4 people. If you want to make more, use another pound or so, and it's always good for leftovers. So I'll soak these. And they can soak up to 2 or 3 hours, but an hour will be sufficient for soaking them, and so that they'll be a little bit easier to disintegrate. So I'm going to mix the peas in here so they have ample surface area to soak, and I'll leave these for about an hour.
So we're going to make some flax crackers. You can actually make these with a lot of different kinds of seeds. If you have other seeds besides flax, you can mix in pumpkin seeds or sesame seeds. Those work too. But I like them just with flax. The one thing that is necessary is some chia seeds, because the chia really helps to bind it together. So I start with about 450 milliliters worth of flax. This is about 2 cups. The amount isn't super important. What is important is that you have equal seeds to water. So I'm going to go ahead and put in just a little bit of chia. Again, the amount of chia really doesn't matter. You don't need very much. So I usually put in about 400 milliliters of flax, and then I just put a little layer on top of chia. About that much, but you can do more, you can do less. I really invite you to play around with it. So I'll pour them here because they need to soak. So I'm going to put in about the same amount of water that I put in flax. And these need to soak about 15 minutes. You'll see that after they soak for about 15 minutes, the chia will start to form a binding substance with the flax. So we'll stir it so that the chia gets nice and mixed with the flax. And here, if you'd like to add a little bit of salt, it's a good time, because the salt will then dissolve in the water and spread out through the entire set of crackers. But these, like I said, you really should make them how you like them. And if you want them to be salt-free, you can make them salt-free. I like a little bit of salt. Of course, always better to use salt from the ocean, so sea salt, as opposed to table salt, because that has a lot of added chemicals. This has a lot of nutrients still in it. So I'll leave that to soak for about 15 minutes.
Okay, what I'm doing here is I'm draining the split peas because there's often dirt and dust on the peas. So when you soak the peas, it's good to drain the water, hopefully in the garden here, so that the plants get the water. And that way you can use fresh water for what you're actually going to ingest in your body. So I've added fresh water to the split peas here. And we want the water just a few centimeters above the top because some of the water will evaporate, but we want the split peas to actually absorb all the water for the dough so we can mash them and we can have that nice creamy liquid for the dough. I'm going to go ahead and light the stove here. In Chile, you have to light it with a match. And we'll put the top on, but it's good to leave a little bit of air so that all of the water doesn't rise up when you're cooking the peas because it actually gives off a lot of foam. And so I'll leave that to boil for about at least 30 minutes. It's going to come to a solid boil. It can come to a fairly rapid boil so that the split peas can absorb the water. And then after a while, we will mash and stir the beans. And that's when I'll put in the spices. I'm not putting in the spices now because I want them to go ahead and disintegrate so we can make that creamy dough.
So I just use the back of a spoon to make this nice and smooth. You can have a little bit more crisp at the edges, have it come up a little bit at the edges, sort of like a crust of a pizza, but it's not necessary. Now I'm going to put it in the oven, and I have no idea the temperature that I'm putting it at because this doesn't say, but it's probably close to about 200. So the idea is that we put this on for a long time and low, as opposed to a short time and hot. So put it on low, 200-ish. And then in about 20-25 minutes, we'll check it and see how it's doing.
So now we're going to make a vegan mayonnaise. All you need is one little carrot. And I got small potatoes because I like these. But about this many potatoes. 3 little potatoes or 1 large potato will do it. And so I got the water boiling here so that I can boil the potatoes and the carrots. And some of you might have a real peeler, but I just got this little knife here. So I'm going to peel the carrot and these 3 potatoes and set them to boil, just like you were doing a old-fashioned southern boiled potato type of thing.
Okay, so we're going to make vegan mayonnaise. And I'm going to start with some fresh turmeric. It comes like this, a little root. And I've gone ahead and peeled it and cut it up into smaller pieces. And that's going to go in the blender. And then we're going to put our potatoes that we boiled earlier in. And always 1 little carrot. Give it some color and some flavor. And if you want, you can also add milk. Now, this is vegan, so we're not going to add milk. If you do add milk, make sure it's from a responsible source and that the cows are treated well. Another option, of course, is to add a little bit of soy milk or almond milk or any other vegetable milk. I'm also going to use a little bit of the water that the potatoes were cooked in. So I like to start with just a little bit, and then you just go adding in as you see the consistency changing. I'm also going to add a little bit of sunflower oil, but again, it could also be olive oil, or if you have sesame oil or any other nut oils that give it a specific flavor, feel free. It's going to need a little bit more water. Yeah. The goal is to get the consistency of mayonnaise, like that you would buy in the store, but you can also make this with more water and make it more liquidy, more like a salad dressing. Yeah, here's a version that's pretty thick. Come close. You can add a little bit more water to make it thinner, or if you like it like this, you can leave it like this. For this, I'm going to add a little bit more water because we're going to eat these with the flax chips, just to give it, the flax chips are pretty thin, so just so it's not something super thick on top. Perfect.
So I have about a little over a cup, maybe a cup and a quarter of brown rice with water in it, and it's always a good idea to rinse the rice and drain it so you get any dust that's left over from its packaging. Now, the rice will stick a little bit after rinsing, but that's okay because you're going to add water to the rice. Now, a really nice way to make your rice super savory is to saute it just a little bit so it gets a little golden before you add the water. So I'll just put a little bit of oil in the pot, and I'll add the rice. And I'll let it saute for just a minute. And notice that there's some rice left over in here, but that's alright. I'll rinse this out and pour the water in it once it's golden. So I'm stirring the rice, sauteing it on low, and it's just now getting golden. And I've rinsed the rice here, but I use the same broth that we use for the potatoes. This way you can conserve water, but also get the extra nutrients from the potato broth if you're making that yummy mayonnaise that Rachel made. So be careful because it's going to bubble up. So you pour slowly, and you bring that to a boil. Now once it's come to a boil, you'll let it sit and simmer, and brown rice takes longer than white rice, so this could take up to 30 minutes to cook. I also forgot to mention that always with rice, the proportions are 2 to 1, water to rice. And I actually had exactly that by coincidence with potato broth. Now just a comment on the dal. These have been on for about 30 minutes, and they still haven't quite disintegrated. You'll see that they foam up. That's why I had left the lid off just a little bit. Now you want the water to be just over top so that eventually when they disintegrate, that the beans will have absorbed all the water. Now I know pumpkin season is coming up for y'all in the States, and this would be a good way to make your dal a little bit sweeter is to add pumpkin. They have pumpkin all year round here in Chile, which is called zapallo, and makes it super yummy, super creamy, and a little bit sweeter. So that could be nice to add a chunk of pumpkin. You don't have to add a whole pumpkin, just a little cut of pumpkin would be really nice. And you can take those same seeds from the pumpkin and you can toast them with a little bit of salt, a little bit of oil, and they're really yummy on the top of that dal. So as you know, we're making rice with veggies, which makes a really nice way to eat your veggies and your rice, and it gives them both a lot of flavor. So I'm using about half a head of broccoli here, which I'll cut really fine, and 3 carrots I have. You could add more, you could add less. Now a really easy way to peel your carrots is to use a serrated knife. If you don't want to use a peeler, it's actually a little bit faster. So you can just take the edge of the serrated knife and peel all the way around, and you'll do that for all of them, cutting the top of the carrot off. What I'll do is I'll cut those very fine into pieces about like that, because you just want to get those little pieces in your mouth full of rice and veggies. Now watch here with the broccoli. I'm going to use all the broccoli because the stems here have a lot of nutrients and they're nice and crunchy in the rice as well. So we'll cut about the same size pieces with the stems. But with the flowers, we want to leave those a little bit bigger so you can still get that broccoli feel. You're about this size. So when all the vegetables are cut about this size here that I have on the left, and the rice is nearly ready. I'll add them so that both the carrots and the broccoli will steam up. Now, of course, the carrots are going to go in a little bit earlier because they take a little bit more time to soften up. Okay, now you can see that the peas have disintegrated. And I just looked at it 5 minutes ago and I thought it's got a long time, but it's just a quick move from looking like peas and they're not even mashed to getting this mashed feel here. So what you want to do when they look mashed like this and they absorb most of the water, you want to go ahead and kind of mash them yourself and stir them. It's going to take a little bit to get that creamy consistency, but this is going to help for them to go ahead and start to get creamier. Now, if you want to make them a little bit more creamier, you can add milk. Always recommendation is that the milk is organic and from cows that have been treated well. Now, this is the point where you would add your spices. Now, I got fresh bay leaves here. Always gives it a nice kind of earthy feel, and some oregano. Some people like to add cumin. So this will do it for now. A little bit of salt. And there we have it. So this will be on the stove for just a little while longer while the peas absorb the rest of this water and get a little bit creamier, but it's getting there. It doesn't take much. It won't be long before we have a nice, good looking dal here. If it's a little bit too watery, you can always leave the top off of the dal so that the water evaporates a little bit more, because you want it creamy, you want it a little bit thick, you don't want it too watery, but the peas will absorb it.
Okay, so for our veggies, this is going to be apart from the rice. We're going to use beetroot leaves. So if you don't have beetroot leaves, you can use any kind of leaves. Kale, collard greens, whatever you like. We use these beet leaves because we can get them for free. A lot of the grocers don't think to sell them, but actually they're full of nutrients and they're not quite as sweet as a beet. And so it gives you a good green leafy vegetable. And then the stalk has a little bit more of that sweet stuff like a beet has. If you have any local farmers markets and they sell beets, just ask them if they have any leaves, because chances are they cut them off and they throw them away. So we're going to cut these up pretty fine. First I'll cut off the stalks because I'm going to cut them a little differently. And I just like to cut in little strips first. And then you can take the strips, turn them the other way, and cut them. So it's almost like you're cutting into squares until you have some pieces that are pretty small. That's about what you're looking for. And for the stalks, I just pretty much dice them. You have to move the knife a little bit because they're a little bit tough to cut. Now, if it were summer, you could use these same beet leaves to make a salad. But being that it's winter, at least here, we like to have our things hot and cooked because that is more insulating for us when it's cold. But if you're in New Orleans or you're in anywhere, North Carolina, where it's hot, you can cut these up super small. The stalks, maybe not so great for a salad, but these pieces, I would cut them even smaller, even finer, and then put a little lemon juice on it for a salad. Being that we're not making a salad, the way I'm going to do this, cut them up, put them in the pan, and just pour some boiling water over them, cover them, let them sit for maybe 5 to 10 minutes. If you want to add a little bit of oil, you can. That's it. Alright, so once you have it all cut up in the pan, you don't even really need the stove for this. I'm just going to pour the hot water on top. Until it's covered and it's got a pretty small layer of water in the bottom, and cover it. And I'll check it in about 5 or 10 minutes. About 5 minutes to see how it's doing. You don't want it to cook down too much because then it loses all the nutrients. And any water that's left can be used. You can use it to drink it like a broth, or you can use it for another preparation so you don't lose the valuable minerals that are in there.
So now I'm stirring the dal, and it's sticking just a little bit in the bottom. And once you stir it quite a bit, maybe a minute of stirring, it ends up disintegrating, and we get that thick kind of consistency here. And it's pretty much done. You could let it go on for a little bit so it gets a little thicker according to your taste, but this is good enough right here. So what I would say is I stirred it about 5 minutes ago and I've left it on there, and now it's giving me that thick, creamy consistency. So I'm actually going to turn it off now. And it's a perfect moment to add the carrots to the rice. Now take a look at this rice. The rice is almost done here. The water is just above the rice. So this is a good time for the carrots to absorb the rest of that water. And since they're so fine, it won't take long for the carrots to absorb that. Now, also, good time to season the rice. So I'm just going to add a little bit of curcuma. Sorry, that's a Spanish word. This is turmeric root ground up. The word in Spanish is curcuma. Sometimes the words in Spanish just stick in my head. And so you just add, that was about a teaspoonful and a little bit of salt. And I got this on a low simmer. And I'm going to stir these. And in about 5 more minutes, maybe even 7 minutes, I'm going to add the broccoli, because I like the broccoli a little bit crunchy. And that's it.
And if you've got a hungry puppy around, these broccoli stalks are actually perfect treats. Paco! Thanks, Mom.
Radhe 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 Govinda Radhe Radhe Govinda Radhe Govinda. So I was just singing a mantra to keep my mind focused on the food that I'm cooking, and also put good energy. And one should really sing something that's elevated, something like a mantra. It could be some gospel tune that you know, or it could be Hey Jude, as long as you're putting good energy. And this one was Radhe Radhe Govinda Radhe, which is expressing the love between the male and the female forces, the energy of the universe between God and all of His creations. You have the election to sing what you like, as long as it's something that keeps your mind on the moment, because we don't want to be thinking about what we're going to be doing tomorrow or what we're going to be doing this weekend. We want to keep our mind here in the food and putting good energy, because we should think about not just, is this food going to be good for me, but is it going to be good for the people that I'm serving? So cooking is a way of serving others and thinking about their well-being. So a great way to keep your mind focused on what you're doing is to sing, and sing something elevated. And actually, it's now time to join the broccoli with the rice. So I'm going to put the broccoli here in the rice and stir. And the rice is almost ready. Just a little bit of water, which the broccoli is going to soak up. And we'll leave that to sit for about another 5 minutes. And we have a veggie rice.
Okay, so after about an hour, we're going to take out the flax chips. It's a really good idea to check it every 20 minutes or so, just to make sure it's not burning, but usually that's not an issue. Now you'll notice that it's shrunk a bit from the size of the pan, and that's how you know that it's really ready. Now you might want them a little bit more gooey. In that case, cook them for less time. But this actually might be more like an hour, 20 minutes. I like them crispy, and you can kind of tell with a knife. If you try to cut it, you hear them break apart. And then take them out, let them cool for just a few minutes, and then you can cut them either with a knife or you can just break them apart freeform.
There's no central heating in Chile. We just have this space heater. And so Paco snuggles up beside it while his parents are making dinner. Roof, roof.
So in the tradition of devotional yoga of India, or in part of Hinduism, which is known as Bhakti Yoga, the tradition is to offer the food before it's eaten. And the idea is that you're offering it up to God, because really, we didn't make the food. Mother Earth, God made it. We just kind of put it together. So you take a plate and you put a little bit of each preparation on it. We've got our beet leaves, our rice with veggies, our dal, and here we've got our mayo and our flax chip. And if you have a drink that you're making, you can serve that as well. And the idea is that you're making this plate for God. And so you offer it up. And we have some mantras that we say with it. But you can just use your own words, saying, God, I offer this to you, or Mother Nature, or if you have a different word for God, Allah, Jehovah, whoever it is, please feel free to also use that tradition if it interests you. And then after you offer it, then we'll take all these bits of food and put them back into the pot. So everything that we've cooked has then been offered, and we can eat it with this great gratitude that we have for the ability to have all this beautiful food. Oman yana timirandasya yanan yana shalakaya shaksur unmilitam yena tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. I offer my most respectful reverences to my spiritual guide and all my spiritual guides who have opened my eyes and helped me live a happier, more devoted life. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So now we take our plate that's been offered and we put the pieces back where they go. And this energy that we've given to this piece of food will now inhabit the whole preparation. Radhe Radhe Govinda Radhe Radhe Govinda Radhe Govinda.
Dear Divine Source, dear Great Energy, dear Lord, we give thanks for this wonderful food. It's come from so many places, not just our kitchen, but from the seed and from the earth, from the little worms that made the earth nutritive, from the rain and the clouds and the sky and the air. All of those things went into the making of this food from so many different places and from so many hands, the farmers that grew the vegetables and the peas and the leaves and the seeds. We give thanks for those who took it to market, those who oversaw its transportation, those who taught us how to cook and gave us the knowledge of cooking healthily. We give thanks for understanding that the food nourishes our bodies and helps us to be more compassionate, loving, and kind persons. Let us take this meal with great joy and happiness so that we may be better persons throughout the rest of our days. Amen. Let's eat.
Tasty?
Muy bueno.